Nature and scope of managerial economics. ANS. Imagine you're running a business, big or small. You need to make smart choices every day. How much should you produce? What price should you set? Should you invest in new equipment? Managerial economics is like your special guide for making these important business decisions. Nature of managerial economics. What it is. It's applied economics. Think of it as taking the rules and ideas from regular economics, like supply and demand, and using them directly to solve real-world business problems. It's not just about theories, it's about practical solutions. Decision-focused. Its main goal is to help managers make better decisions. It provides tools and ways of thinking to choose the best option when facing different business challenges. Micro-oriented mostly, it largely deals with the problems of a single firm or business unit, rather than the entire economy. So, it looks at how your company can be more efficient, profitable, and competitive. Prescriptive. It doesn't just describe what is happening, it suggests what managers should do to achieve their goals, like maximizing profit or minimizing cost. Interdisciplinary. It borrows ideas from various fields like economics, statistics, mathematics, and even management theory to give a complete picture for decision-making. Scope of managerial economics. What it covers. The scope of managerial economics is broad, covering almost all key areas where a business needs to make choices. Demand analysis and forecasting. Understanding what customers want, how much they're willing to pay, and predicting future demand for your products or services. Production and cost analysis. Figuring out the most efficient way to produce goods, managing costs effectively, and understanding how different production levels impact your expenses. Pricing decisions. Deciding on the best price for your products, considering factors like competition, customer demand, and production costs. Capital budgeting. Investment decisions. Making smart choices about where to invest your money, like buying new machinery, expanding operations, or developing new products. Profit management. Strategies to maximize profits, analyze break-even points, and plan for future profitability. Market structure and competition. Understanding the type of market you operate in, e.g., highly competitive, few competitors, and how to strategize against your rivals. Risk and uncertainty analysis. Evaluating potential risks and uncertainties in the business environment and developing strategies to manage them. In simple terms, managerial economics helps businesses use economic thinking to make smart choices about their limited resources, ultimately aiming to achieve their goals, usually maximizing profit or achieving other organizational objectives. Q.2 How is profit maximization an objective of the firm? Explain. ANS. You want to understand why maximizing profit is such a big deal for businesses. Let's break it down in simple terms, imagining or explaining it for someone to listen to. Imagine you're running a lemonade stand. Why are you doing it? Probably to make some money, right? That's the simplest way to think about profit maximization as a goal for a business, often called a firm. It's the idea that a business tries to make as much profit as possible. What is profit anyway? Before we go deeper, let's quickly define profit. In simple terms, profit is what's left over after you've paid all your expenses. You sell lemonade for 10 rupees. That's your revenue. It costs 2 rupees for lemons, 1 rupee for sugar, and 1 rupee for cups. That's 4 rupees in total costs. Your profit is 10 rupees revenue minus 4 rupees costs equals 6 rupees. So, profit maximization means trying to make that 6 rupees as big as it can possibly be. Why is profit maximization such a primary goal? There are several strong reasons why firms focus on maximizing their profits. Survival and sustainability. Think about it. If your lemonade stand consistently loses money or just breaks even, how long can you keep it going? Not very long. Profit is the lifeblood of any business. It provides the financial cushion needed to stay afloat, pay employees, cover rent, and simply continue operating day after day, year after year. Without profit, a business is like a car without fuel, it simply stops. Reward for risk-taking. Starting and running a business involves a lot of risk. You're investing your time, money, and effort, and there's no guarantee of success. Profit acts as the reward for taking these risks. It's the incentive that encourages entrepreneurs to innovate, create jobs, and provide goods and services to society. If there were no potential for profit, very few people would bother starting businesses. Source of investment and growth. Where does a business get money to grow? To buy new, better machines. To open another branch. To research and develop new products. A significant portion of this money comes from retained profits, profits that the business doesn't pay out to owners but reinvests back into itself. If a firm isn't making good profits, it struggles to fund its own growth, making it harder to compete and expand. Attracting investors and funding. If you want to expand your lemonade stand into a chain and need money from outside investors, like banks or venture capitalists, what will they look at first? Your ability to make a profit. Investors are looking for a return on their investment. A profitable business signals that it's well managed, has a good product or service, and is a safe bet for their money. Low or no profits make it very difficult to attract the capital needed for significant expansion. Efficiency and resource allocation. The pursuit of profit forces a firm to be efficient. To maximize profit, you have to think about minimizing costs. Are you wasting lemons? Can you get cups cheaper? This pushes you to find the most cost-effective ways to produce your goods or services. Maximizing revenue. Are you selling enough lemonade? Is your pricing right? This encourages you to understand your customers, market your product effectively, and find the optimal price point. This constant drive for efficiency means resources, like labor, materials, and capital, are used in the best possible way, leading to less waste and more value creation. Meeting shareholder expectations. For larger companies, especially those with many shareholders, people who own a small piece of the company, profit maximization is crucial. Shareholders invest their money hoping for a return, either through dividends, a share of the profits paid out, or an increase in the value of their shares. If a company isn't profitable, shareholders will become unhappy, sell their shares, and the company's value will fall. Management is often directly accountable to shareholders for the company's profitability. Basis for managerial decisions. In managerial economics, the assumption that firms aim to maximize profit provides a clear framework for making various business decisions. When a manager has to choose between two production methods, two pricing strategies, or two investment opportunities, the option that leads to the highest expected profit is typically chosen. It gives a measurable goal against which different strategies can be evaluated. Limitations and other objectives. While profit maximization is a dominant objective, it's important to acknowledge that it's not the only thing businesses care about, and sometimes there are limitations or other objectives that come into play. Short-term versus long-term profit. Sometimes, a firm might sacrifice a bit of short-term profit for greater long-term profit. For example, investing heavily in research and development today might reduce current profit but lead to highly profitable new products years down the line. Social responsibility. Many firms now consider their impact on society and the environment. They might adopt practices that are more sustainable or ethical, even if these don't always lead to the absolute maximum profit. Sales maximization. Some firms might prioritize increasing their market share or sales volume, especially in competitive industries, even if it means slightly lower profit margins initially. The idea here is that a larger market share can lead to greater profits in the long run. Managerial utility. In some cases, managers might make decisions that benefit themselves, e.g., higher salaries, bigger offices rather than strictly maximizing company profit, especially if their performance isn't tightly linked to profit outcomes. Satisficing. Instead of aiming for maximum profit, some firms might aim for a satisfactory level of profit, enough to keep shareholders happy and ensure survival, without necessarily squeezing every last penny out. This might happen when there's a lack of perfect information or managers want to avoid excessive risk. However, even with these other considerations, profit remains the fundamental driver for most commercial enterprises. Without a healthy profit, a firm cannot achieve its other objectives, whether they are social, environmental, or growth-oriented. Profit is the engine that allows the business to function, innovate, reward its stakeholders, and contribute to the economy. It's the most common and powerful metric for business success. Q3. Explain the difference between a firm's demand curve and market demand curve. ANS. Imagine you're trying to understand how many ice creams people want to buy. There are two different ways to look at this. Want. How many ice creams does one specific ice cream shop expect to sell at different prices? This is about the firm's demand curve. How many ice creams do all the people in the whole town want to buy from all the ice cream shops combined at different prices? This is about the market demand curve. Let's break down the difference between simple languages. The market demand curve. The big picture. The market demand curve shows the total quantity of a good or service that all consumers in a whole market are willing and able to buy at different possible prices, during a specific time. What it represents. It's the overall demand for a product, no matter who sells it. Think of it as the demand for ice cream, in general. Shape. It almost always slopes downward from left to right. This is because of the law of demand. When the price of ice cream is high, people buy less. When the price of ice cream is low, people buy more. How it's formed. You get the market demand curve by adding up the individual demand curves of all the consumers in that market. If one person wants 2 ice creams at 50 rupees, and another wants 3, and a third wants 1, then at 50 rupees, the market demand is 2 plus 3 plus 1 equals 6 ice creams. Who cares about it? Policymakers, economists, and entire industries care about the market demand curve because it tells them about the overall popularity and potential of a product. Example for market demand. Imagine a town with 100 people. If ice cream costs 100 rupees per cone, maybe only 10 people buy 1 cone each. Total market demand equals 10 cones. If ice cream drops to 50 rupees per cone, maybe 80 people buy 2 cones each. Total market demand equals 160 cones. If ice cream is 20 rupees per cone, maybe 95 people buy 3 cones each. Total market demand equals 285 cones. If you plot these points price on vertical axis, quantity on horizontal axis, you'd see a downward sloping curve. This is the market demand curve for ice cream in the town. The firm's demand curve. The shop's view. The firm's demand curve shows the quantity of a good or service that a single, individual firm like one specific ice cream shop can expect to sell at different prices. This curve looks very different depending on how competitive the market is. Let's look at 2 main scenarios. Scenario 1. Perfect competition. Many shops selling identical ice cream. Imagine a market with hundreds of ice cream shops, all selling exactly the same plain vanilla ice cream. No shop has a special flavor, a unique location, or a famous name. What it represents. The demand for your specific shop's vanilla ice cream. Shape. In perfect competition, a firm's demand curve is a horizontal line at the market price. Why? Because your shop is so small compared to the whole market, you can't influence the market price. If the market price for a vanilla cone is 50 rupees, you have to sell your cones at 50 rupees. If you try to sell for 51 rupees, customers will immediately go to any of the hundreds of other shops selling identical ice cream for 50 rupees. You'll sell 0. If you try to sell for 49 rupees, you'll attract all the customers, but why would you, when you can sell all you want at 50 rupees? You'd be leaving money on the table. Price taker. This means individual firms in perfect competition are price takers. They simply accept the price determined by the overall market supply and demand. Who cares about it? The individual ice cream shop manager. They know they can sell as much as they want at the market price, so their decision isn't what price to set, but how many cones to make at that fixed price to maximize their profit. Example for firm's demand curve: perfect competition. The market demand and supply for vanilla ice cream in the town determine that the equilibrium price is 50 rupees per cone. Your shop, Cool Cones, faces this 50 rupees price. At 50 rupees, you can sell 100 cones, 200 cones, 500 cones, as many as you can produce. If you raise your price to 51 rupees, your demand drops to 0 cones. If you lower your price to 49 rupees, your demand might be huge, but you're better off selling at 50 rupees. So, for Cool Cones, the demand curve is a flat line at 50 rupees. Scenario 2. Monopoly or imperfect competition, fewer shops, differentiated products. Now, imagine your shop, Gourmet Gelato, is the only one in town selling unique, artisanal gelato. Or maybe there are a few shops, but yours has a special recipe, a famous chef, or a prime location. What it represents: the demand for your specific product, which is different from competitors. Shape. The firm's demand curve in this case will be downward sloping, just like the market demand curve. Why? Because your shop has some market power. You can influence the price. If you raise your gelato price, you won't lose all your customers because your product is unique. Some loyal customers will still buy. However, you will sell less because some people will find it too expensive or look for substitutes. If you lower your price, you'll attract more customers. Price maker. Firms in imperfect competition, like monopolies, monopolistic competition, or oligopolies, are price makers to some extent. They have control over their pricing strategy. Who cares about it? The firm's manager, because they need to decide what price to set to sell the quantity that maximizes their profit, knowing that changing the price will affect how much they sell. Example for firm's demand curve: monopoly, imperfect competition. Your Gourmet Gelato shop is the only one. If you price your gelato at 150 rupees, you might sell 20 gelatos a day. If you lower the price to 120 rupees, you might sell 50 gelatos a day. If you lower it further to 80 rupees, you might sell 100 gelatos a day. When you plot these points, your firm's demand curve will be downward sloping, just like the market demand curve, because you are the market for your unique product, or at least a significant part of it. In essence, the market demand curve tells us what everyone wants at what price for a general product, while the firm's demand curve tells a specific business how many units of its own product it can sell at different prices, given its position in the market. Q4. What are the major approaches to demand measurement? ANS. Understanding how much customers will want to buy in the future is vital for any business. This process is known as demand measurement or demand forecasting. It helps companies make smart decisions about production, pricing, staffing, and inventory. There are two main types of approaches to doing this: qualitative methods based on opinions and quantitative methods based on data. 1. Qualitative methods, relying on human insight. These methods are best when you don't have much historical data, perhaps for a brand new product, or when the market is changing rapidly. They leverage human judgment and experience. Expert opinion method, e.g., Delphi method. What it is: this involves gathering forecasts from a group of knowledgeable individuals, like industry specialists, sales managers, or consultants. How it works: Delphi. The Delphi method is a structured way to achieve consensus among experts. Experts answer questionnaires anonymously over several rounds. After each round, a summary of the group's responses is shared, allowing experts to reconsider their initial forecasts. This continues until a general agreement or stable set of opinions emerges. The anonymity helps prevent dominant personalities from swaying opinions. Simple example: a company launching a new type of smart home device might ask a panel of tech gurus and market analysts for their sales predictions for the next year. Pros: good for new products or highly uncertain markets, taps into rich experience and intuition. Cons: can be subjective, might take time, and can be influenced by individual biases, though Delphi tries to mitigate this. Salesforce composite method. What it is: this method collects demand estimates directly from a company's sales team. Salespeople are on the ground, interacting with customers daily, and often have a keen sense of local market conditions and customer needs. How it works: each salesperson estimates the expected sales in their specific territory for a future period. These individual estimates are then combined, composited, to create an overall forecast for the entire company. Simple example: a beverage company's regional sales managers might predict how many cases of a new energy drink they expect to sell in their respective cities based on retailer feedback and local events. Pros: uses direct market contact, simple to implement, and often good for short-term forecasts. Cons: salespeople might be overly optimistic or pessimistic, e.g., to influence their sales targets, and they might lack a broader economic perspective. Consumer survey method, market research. What it is: this involves directly asking potential customers about their buying intentions or preferences. How it works: this can be done through interviews, questionnaires, online polls, or focus groups, often using a carefully selected sample of the target market. Simple example, a clothing brand considering a new line of sustainable apparel might survey its loyal customers to understand their willingness to pay more for eco-friendly products and their preferred styles. Pros, provides direct insight into customer desires and potential demand, especially valuable for new product development or significant product changes. Cons, what customers say they will do might differ from what they actually do. Surveys can be costly and time-consuming, and results depend heavily on proper survey design and sampling. 2. Quantitative methods, analyzing past data. These methods rely on historical sales data and statistical techniques to predict future demand. They assume that past patterns will likely continue into the future. They work best when there's a good amount of reliable historical data. Time series analysis. What it is, this method analyzes patterns within a product's past sales data over time. It aims to identify and project trends, long-term growth, decline, seasonal variations, e.g., higher sales in summer, cyclical patterns, e.g., tied to economic cycles, and random fluctuations. How it works. Techniques include simple trend projection, moving averages, averaging sales over recent periods to smooth out noise, or more complex exponential smoothing, which gives more weight to recent data. Simple example, a toy company might look at its monthly sales over the past 5 years to identify that demand always peaks in December, seasonality, and has a general upward trend over time. They then project these patterns into the future. Pros, objective, can be relatively inexpensive if data is readily available, good for short to medium-term forecasts, and widely used. Cons, assumes past patterns will repeat, doesn't explain why demand changes, and struggles with sudden, unexpected market shifts. Econometric methods, regression analysis. What it is, this is a more advanced statistical approach that seeks to establish a cause and effect relationship between product demand and various influencing factors like price, consumer income, advertising spending, competitor prices, interest rates, etc. How it works, it uses regression models to quantify how changes in these independent variables affect demand, the dependent variable. For instance, it might determine that a 1% drop in price leads to a 1.5% increase in sales. Simple example, a car manufacturer could use regression to model how its car sales are affected by fuel prices, average household income, interest rates on car loans, and its advertising budget. They can then use this model to predict sales under different economic conditions or marketing strategies. Pros, provides insights into why demand changes, allows for what-if scenarios, e.g., what if competitors lower their price, and can be very accurate if the relationships are stable and data is good. Cons, requires substantial historical data and statistical expertise, assumes underlying relationships don't change, and results are sensitive to data quality. Conclusion, choosing the right demand measurement approach depends on several factors: the type of product, the availability and quality of data, how far into the future you need to forecast, and the resources you have. Often, businesses use a combination of these methods, perhaps quantitative methods for established products with stable demand and qualitative methods for new innovations or during times of significant market uncertainty, to achieve the most accurate and reliable picture of future demand. Q. 5. Briefly explain production function with 2 variable inputs. ANDs. Imagine you're baking cookies. To make cookies, you need ingredients like flour, sugar, eggs, and tools like an oven and a mixer. In economics, these ingredients and tools are called inputs or factors of production. The cookies themselves are the output. A production function is like a recipe that tells you the maximum amount of output cookies you can get from a given set of inputs, ingredients, and tools, assuming you're using the best possible technique. It's a technical relationship, not an economic one. It doesn't consider costs or prices yet. Most simply, we can write it as Q equals F inputs, where Q is the quantity of output, and F means as a function of the inputs. Now, let's focus on a production function with 2 variable inputs. This is a common and very useful concept in economics. What are 2 variable inputs? In the real world, businesses use many inputs. However, to simplify analysis, we often focus on 2 main variable inputs that a firm can change in the long run. The most common example is labor L and capital K. Labor L, this refers to the human effort, skills, and time used in production, e.g., the number of workers, hours worked. It's variable because a firm can usually hire or lay off workers relatively quickly. Capital K, this refers to machinery, equipment, buildings, and technology used in production, e.g., the number of ovens, size of the factory. In the long run, a firm can choose to buy more machines or build a larger factory, making capital a variable input. In the short run, capital is often considered fixed. So, a production function with 2 variable inputs looks like Q equals FL, K. This equation tells us the maximum quantity of output Q that can be produced by using different combinations of labor L and capital K. It assumes that the technology available remains constant. The idea of substitution. The key insight from a 2 variable input production function is that these inputs can often be substituted for each other to produce the same level of output. Simple example, building a wall. Let's say you need to build a wall 100 meters long, your desired output, Q equals 100 meters. You have 2 variable inputs. Labor L, number of bricklayers. Capital K, number of bricklaying machines. Here are some combinations that might allow you to build that 100-meter wall. Combination A, 10 bricklayers L plus 1 bricklaying machine K. Combination B, 7 bricklayers L plus 2 bricklaying machines K. Combination C, 4 bricklayers L plus 3 bricklaying machines K. Notice how you can swap one input for another. To use fewer bricklayers' labor, you might need to use more bricklaying machines capital. All these combinations produce the same output, 100 meters of wall. Isoquants, the visual representation. Economists use a special curve called an isoquant from iso, meaning equal, and quant, meaning quantity, to graphically represent a production function with two variable inputs. An isoquant shows all the different combinations of two inputs like labor and capital that yield the same level of output. In our wall example, each combination A, B, C that produces 100 meters of wall would lie on the same isoquant curve. Characteristics of isoquants: downward sloping. To maintain the same output level, if you use less of one input, you must use more of the other. Convex to the origin. This reflects the idea of diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution (MRTS). It means that as you substitute more and more of one input for another, e.g., more machines for less labor, it becomes increasingly difficult to continue substituting. In our example, going from 1 machine to 2 might replace 3 workers, but going from 2 to 3 machines might only replace 3 workers, not 6. Each additional machine becomes less effective at replacing labor. Higher isoquants mean more output. An isoquant further away from the origin, 0, 0 represents a higher level of output. If you build a 200-meter wall, you'll need more total inputs than a 100-meter wall, so its isoquant will be above and to the right of the 100-meter isoquant. Do not intersect. Two different isoquants can never cross because a single combination of inputs cannot produce two different levels of output. Why is this important for firms? The production function with two variable inputs, and particularly the concept of isoquants, is incredibly important for firms because it helps them make crucial decisions. Input combination choice. Businesses want to produce a certain amount of output at the lowest possible cost. By understanding the different input combinations that yield the same output via isoquants and the prices of those inputs, firms can find the most cost-efficient way to produce. Technological flexibility. It shows firms the flexibility they have in production. If the price of labor goes up significantly, they might look at using more capital machines instead, while still achieving their production targets. Understanding returns to scale. When both inputs are variable, we can also analyze returns to scale. What happens to output when you increase all inputs proportionately? Do cookies double if you double both flour and ovens? This helps firms understand optimal plant size for long-term growth. In essence, the production function with two variable inputs provides a powerful framework for managers to understand the physical relationship between their resources and the goods or services they create, allowing for more informed and efficient production decisions in the long run. What are the cost concepts frequently used in the managerial decision-making process? ANDs. Okay, let's simplify those important cost ideas that managers use. Opportunity cost. What it is: the benefit you miss out on when you choose one thing over another. It's the value of the next best thing you didn't do. Why it's important. It reminds you that every choice has a hidden cost, what you gave up. Simple example: if you spend your evening watching a movie, your opportunity cost might be the money you could have earned if you worked overtime, or the rest you could have gotten. Explicit versus implicit costs and economic cost. Explicit costs. Money that actually leaves your pocket. Think of it as your grocery bill, rent, or employee salaries. These are the costs that show up clearly in your accounting books. Implicit costs. The value of things you already own and use in your business, but for which you don't pay money directly. It's the money you could have earned if you used those things differently. Economic cost. This is the total true cost, combining both the money you paid out explicit and the value of what you gave up by using your own things implicit. Why they are important. Explicit costs tell you your basic spending. Implicit costs help you see the real profitability, including the hidden value of your own resources. Simple example: if you own a bakery and work in it yourself, your explicit costs are flour, sugar, electricity. Your implicit cost is the salary you could have earned working for another bakery. Fixed costs versus variable costs. Fixed costs. Costs that don't change no matter how much you produce, at least in the short run. You pay them even if you make nothing. Simple example: your factory rent, your manager's salary. Variable costs. Costs that change directly with how much you produce. Make more, pay more, make less, pay less. Simple example: the sugar for each cookie, the fabric for each shirt. Why they are important. Helps you understand what costs you can cut quickly, variable, and what costs you're stuck with, fixed, if sales drop. Useful for pricing and deciding how much to make. Marginal cost. What it is: the extra cost of making just one more unit of something. Why it's important. This is key for, should I make one more? Decisions. If selling one more item brings in more money than it costs to make that one item, you should probably make it. Simple example: if making your 100th cookie costs 5 rupees, but selling it brings 10 rupees, then making that 100th cookie is a good idea. Sunk costs. What it is: money you've already spent and cannot get back, no matter what you do next. It's gone. Why it's important. You should ignore sunk costs when making future decisions. Don't throw good money after bad just because you've already spent a lot. Simple example: you bought a movie ticket for 300 rupees. 10 minutes into the movie, you realize it's terrible. The 300 rupees is a sunk cost. When deciding whether to stay or leave, you should ignore the 300 rupees. Only consider if the rest of the movie is worth your future time. Q.7 How does economies of scale differ from Economies of scope. Explain with examples. ANS. In business, economies refers to cost savings. So, when we talk about economies of scale and economies of scope, we're discussing two distinct ways that a business can lower its average production costs. While both are about getting more efficient, they differ in how those efficiencies are achieved. Let's break them down. Economies of scale. Getting cheaper by producing more of the same thing. What it is, economies of scale occur when the average cost of producing each unit of a single product decreases as the total quantity of that product being produced increases. Think of it as, bigger is cheaper, for one specific item. How it happens. Bulk buying. When you buy huge quantities of raw materials, suppliers often give you discounts. The more flour a bakery buys, the cheaper each kilo of flour might be. Specialization. As production grows, you can hire specialized workers who become very efficient at one specific task, rather than a few workers doing many different things. A car factory can have workers just installing wheels, or just painting. Spreading fixed costs. Many costs don't change regardless of how much you produce. These are fixed costs, like rent for a factory, or the cost of a large machine. If you produce more units, these fixed costs get spread out over a larger number of items, making the average cost per item lower. Efficient use of machinery. Large, expensive machines might be underutilized if you only produce a small quantity. But if you produce a lot, that machine can run closer to its full capacity, making each unit it helps produce cheaper. Research and development (R&D), the cost of developing a new product or process is often fixed. If you then produce millions of units using that R&D, the R&D cost per unit becomes tiny. Example, imagine a company, T-shirt Titans, that prints custom T-shirts. Small scale. If they print only 100 T-shirts a month, they still have to pay for the printing machine, the rent for their workshop, and design software. The fixed costs per T-shirt are high. They might buy ink in small, expensive batches. Their average cost might be 200 rupees per T-shirt. Large scale. If T-shirt Titans expands and prints 10,000 T-shirts a month, they can buy ink and T-shirt blanks in massive bulk, getting significant discounts. Hire specialized staff for design, printing, and packaging. Their rent and machine costs are now spread across 10,000 T-shirts instead of 100, drastically reducing the fixed cost per shirt. Their average cost per T-shirt might drop to 80 rupees. This reduction in average cost per T-shirt due to increased volume of T-shirt production is an example of economies of scale. Economies of scope. Getting cheaper by producing a variety of things. What it is, economies of scope occur when it is cheaper to produce two or more different products together within the same company than to produce each of them separately in different companies. It's about efficiency gained from variety, not just volume. How it happens. Shared resources inputs. Different products can share the same raw materials, production facilities, or machinery. Shared expertise knowledge. The knowledge, skills, or technology developed for one product can be applied to another, reducing the R&D costs for the second product. Shared marketing distribution channels. One sales team or distribution network can market and deliver multiple products, spreading those costs. Joint production byproducts. Producing one good naturally creates a byproduct that can be used to create another valuable good. Example, consider Dairy Delights, a company that processes milk. Initial business. They just produce bottled milk. They have a dairy farm, milking equipment, pasteurization machines, and a bottling plant. Adding yogurt. Dairy Delights decides to also produce yogurt. They can use the same raw milk from their cows. Much of the same processing equipment, pasteurization, refrigeration. Their existing quality control team and lab. Their same distribution trucks that deliver milk to stores can now also deliver yogurt. The cost of setting up a separate company just to make yogurt would be much higher, needing another farm, another plant, another distribution network. By adding yogurt to their existing operations, Dairy Delights lowers the average total cost of producing both milk and yogurt compared to if two separate companies did it. This is an example of economies of scope. In short, economies of scale are about getting efficient by doing more of the same thing, while economies of scope are about getting efficient by doing different but related things together. Both are crucial strategies for businesses to reduce costs.